Hi everyone, greetings and thank you for joining us this evening for this presentation, which is co-hosted by the Essex branch and the Kent branch. My name is Cindy Robichaud and I am a member of both branches. I'd like to inform everyone that your microphone and your cameras have been turned off, but we do encourage you to use your chat box to say hello or to tell us where you're from. So if you hover your mouse or your cursor down to the bottom of your screen, for those who don't know, the chat box will pop up across the bottom. If you can't see it, to the right hand side, it says more with 3 little dots above it. If you click on that, a pop-up will come up and the chat will be there. Click on the chat and that will open the chat for you. If you want to talk to everybody, make sure that on the little pull down, that you pull it down and you choose everyone. Because if you just choose Ontario Ancestors or host, that's the only person that's going to see you instead of you saying hi to everyone else. If you want to send a question in from the pull down, choose question, and that will go directly to the person who's monitoring the questions. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that there will be an opportunity to ask questions of the speaker, as I just mentioned. So do type them in the chat box to question. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have an opportunity for Debra to answer your questions. Debra has also provided a handout which we will be putting up in the chat box just before her presentation begins, and you can download it from there. This presentation is also being recorded, and it will be available on the Kent branch and the Essex branch YouTube channel, where you can also check out other presentations that have been recorded and uploaded for your viewing pleasure. So let's get started. Over the past several months, we have all had to adjust to many changes and closures. Although both branches' physical locations were closed, both remained very, very busy. At the Essex branch, cemetery work resumed at Windsor Grove. Here are a few photos of some of the great treasures that they have been finding. They have been busy photographing and transcribing and unearthing these treasures. They've been under the ground for so long, and it's really nice to bring them up. It's almost like, reconnecting with that ancestor again. And this is a little bit of photos of a before and after. They're doing some cleaning out there too. So it's a really big difference that they're doing. So if you're in the area and you want to help out the team, they meet at Windsor Grove on Tuesday mornings. And if you're interested or want a little bit more information, just email the email that's on the bottom of the screen there, and Pat Clancy will get back to you. At the Kent branch, a few of the volunteers have been busy digitizing materials at their own homes, which are being uploaded to the members only section of the website. This is an ongoing project, so if you're a member of the branch, be sure to check back to the members only often. This is another little project that happened over the summer. These glasses, which are graduation glasses from the Chatham School of Nursing, were found at an antique store. Our past chair purchased them in the hopes that we can maybe find a home for them. We took the information of the signatures off of the glasses, and Judy did a little bit of research to try to find descendants. We put the word out, and family members were indeed located. Within a few weeks, the glasses have all found a new home. So it was just a nice little thing that kept us going through the summer. An upcoming project for both the Kent and Essex branch, and possibly the London Middlesex branch, the Lambton branch, and the Oxford branch, is a microfilm digitization project. Ontario Ancestors purchased a microfilm scanner, which is being offered to all the branches to digitize any microfilm that they may have. Both Kent and Essex have a few microfilm films of various resources, but they're really underused and they're sitting in filing cabinets or in drawers. So the goal is to preserve the information and make it more readily available. The branches from the south are looking forward to this project, which will likely begin this fall. For those of you who are members of the society, you know that our annual conference was canceled due to COVID, and so was the annual meeting. The meeting has been rescheduled and will be a virtual meeting now, so now every single member can attend. Your attendance is particularly important this year since there are multiple candidates running for positions on the board. So there will actually be some elections held this year. Please plan to attend, mark it in your calendar, and visit the Society's website to register so that you are able to join as your membership. And finally, I'd like to mention the October presentations for both branches. So Kent Branch's October presentation will be October the 9th, and it will be researching Native ancestry. Bob Daly will share his experiences and the resources that he used to research his own First Nation roots. And then on October the 13th, the Essex branch presentation will be the Old Sandwich South Historical Society, where curator and historian Kevin will be discussing the resources and the treasures and the services that are available to family historians at the Old Sandwich South Historical Society. So be sure to check out both branch websites and their Facebook groups because they'll have all the details. So now let's get to tonight's presentation, Home Sweet Home by Debra Honor UE, researching the history of family homes, buildings, and properties. I see that her handout is now available for you to download in the chat box. Debra Butler Honor, has been passionate about family history since grade 8. She graduated from the University of Windsor, Ontario with her BA in history, and then from the University of Windsor with her Bachelor of Education. She taught elementary French for most of her career and 7 years as a grade 1 teacher. Debra has been a member of the Ontario Ancestors for 43 years. She has some experience behind her. She is also a member of the United Empire Loyalist Association of Canada and has proven 8 Loyalist ancestors. She is a lecturer and a researcher, and her family has noticed that most vacations have some kind of family research travel involved, so that is a true genealogist. So Debra, I will hand everything over to you. I will stop sharing my screen now, and I will let you share your screen if you're ready.
I am ready. I just hit the wrong, oh my goodness, what screen have I got here? Oh, that's what I want. I guess I tried to share it too early.
That's okay. Give her a try again. There you go.
I'm getting there from the beginning. Come on. We're all set.
Okay, we'll take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy, for the great introduction. And I'd like to thank both branches for inviting me to come and speak to everybody tonight. This is my first Zoom meeting, so this is exciting. What I would like to start with are the 3 pictures at the top of the Home Sweet Home page. And that is, let's see, wait a minute. Let's see. Yeah. Those are only the only 2 houses I've ever really lived in. The one on the left is my parents' house, which my dad built. And the one in the middle and on the right is the house that came with my husband. When we got married, he already had a home, and it was the home of his grandparents. So the picture in the middle is what it looked like in 1960. And the one on the right is what it looks like now after we've added on to all 4 sides of it. So when you're researching a house or a building, there's different ways that you can research a house. The first one is you can research the architecture. So you can research the kind of style the house is, what kind of changes the house have had, any additions. The second way of researching a house is looking at the owners. Who built it? Who bought it? Maybe who rented it? So let's look at the architecture of a house first. So what style is the house? Is it colonial, arts and crafts, mission, Italianate, Victorian, wartime housing, prairie style, four-square, lots of different styles of houses. What changes or additions have been made to the house? Were the walls taken out to make it an open concept? Were chimneys taken out because they weren't needed anymore? Because there's a new system of heating the house. Did someone add the front porch? When was the back deck made into an enclosed three-season room? The other question is, who was the architect? Now, for my two houses, I know, because my dad built our house. He was the architect, and my husband's great-grandfather was the architect for the house that I live in now. So I'm lucky. I don't have to search for that. So what style is the house? So here's three pictures of houses. The one on the left, the modern home, is a craftsman style house. The one in the middle is called an English vernacular cottage. And the one on the far right is a four-square. The middle house, for those of you that live in Kent County and go over to Parks Blueberries, there's a house that's real close to Parks Blueberries that reminds me of this house in the middle, only it's made with all the fieldstones on top of it, on the outside. So what changes are on a house? What types of additions are in a house? This house that I'm showing you right now is all four pictures of the same house. This is Bellevue. And Bellevue is in Amherstburg, Ontario, and it was built in 1819. It was actually completed. So these are all pictures of the house at different time periods. So you've got the top left picture is a drawing before the house was built. It's called a Palladian style. There's two dependencies on the left and the right, and in between that and the big part of the house in the middle is a veranda with some little rooms. The picture that's colored on the right is the back of the house, and it was painted after the house was finished. And it shows you what the house looks like. I wish it had a picture from the front, but it's just a picture from the back. The picture in the bottom left, it's 1875. The house is looking a little bit old and decrepit. Let's modernize it. So they turned it into an Italianate style. So they've got a whole new, brand new porch on the front. They add those little wings in the middle. They added, what are they called? Those windows that come out. That's pretty bad when I forget words. And then by the 1927s, the fourth picture, they decided they wanted to remodel it to make it more modern again. And what they did was actually take it back almost to what it was originally. So these are the kinds of things you can do with the history of an older house, is to figure out from pictures what they've got. The property owners. Who built the house? Who bought the house? Now, the types of records for architecture and owners, they do overlap at sometimes. And we will cover those. So here we are, the types of the records that I'm going to be talking about tonight. We've got land records, census records, city directories, museums, archives, and libraries, maps, newspapers, Google Earth, and photographs. Now, I don't have time to go into a lot of detail on every one of these, but I will give you some examples. The first one is land records, and it's probably the most important if you're looking at property. So the number one is the Ontario Land Registry Office, and that's their website. This is the place where if you're selling your house, your lawyer has to go to prove that the house has been legally passed down correctly before you can sell it. So this is where Service Ontario gets their money from the land office, from the lawyers. Very recently, the Ontario Land Registry offices, we have been told, will be closing on October the 1st. So the only place that you can go to get this information now will be on their website, which isn't always as easily used for all of Ontario. And I'll get into that in a while. Quite a few years ago, the Land Registry Office wanted to get rid of all of the paper that they had, which they were putting into big rooms and renting these spaces, and they didn't want to pay the rent anymore. So they were going to get rid of all of the papers. The Association for the Preservation of Ontario Land Registry Office Documents was started by a few people of the Ontario Genealogical Society, and they named themselves Applerod. That's the short form. Applerod is the place. They went to all of the different land registry offices and they documented everything that was there. Not everything was land registry office stuff. Some of it was jewelry. It was amazing what they found. But anyways, they also found places to put all the papers. Some of them went to the Ontario Archives. Some went to libraries and museums. Number 3 are the copybooks. The copybooks are sort of the photocopies before photocopiers. So they would write down what the different instruments were, what the sale of the property, who was selling it, who was buying it, for how much, everything that was in the documents. And they would put those copybooks somewhere else in case there was a fire at the land registry office. They would have a copy somewhere else that was safe. The ones for Kent and Essex, most of them are being held at the University of Windsor. So you could go there and look at the copybooks. So let's look at the on-land website, the Ontario Land Registry Access. And down at the bottom, let's see here. Can I get one of these things? I'm going to get a laser pointer. Aha, got one. So you go to this little box down here, and I typed in Essex. 2 different things come up. As you can see, one's one is the city of Essex, and one is the Land Registry Office. Okay. When you scroll down, I went to the Essex one, okay? And when you scroll down, there's 4 different spaces. The one that they started with on the on-land website is called Historical Books. That's the really good one for doing any kind of farm records. The one for property is the better one for doing town records. So we're going to go to historical records first. The books. So when you go to the books, put in that you want the parcel registry book, you want a concession number and a lot number. And that's where what all the farmlands are. Sorry for the for the phone calls here. Okay. I put in for my own property. It's called Malden Township, and we are on concession 4, lot 39. Now, for most townships, when you go through for the county, they name concession 4, lot 1, concession 2, lot 1. In Malden, they didn't. It's a weird one. Lot numbers were all different. So there's only one concession 4, lot 39. There is not a concession 3, lot 39. Yeah, I'm getting rid of this. This page is the next page. And if you notice at the bottom, you've got page 1 to 6. It's a nothing page. You really don't have to worry about it. Page 3 is the page you want, and that's the first page showing who got the land from the Crown. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And the important part of the document is the instrument number. If you want a copy of that, you have to get, if you want a copy of the document, you have to have that number. At the top where the red line is, it's a patent, 1797, for the Crown giving the property to Matthew Elliott, as well as other property. Okay, so the instrument number is what you need. And then it sees they have wills, bought and sold, is what I usually say BNS is. Mortgages, deeds, okay? So that's what it is. When you go to property, that's better for the towns. You've got, up at the top, you've got PIN, address, instrument, and map. Now, when they talk about instrument, that's what I was showing you on the page before. For that would be the instrument number. What we're going to look at is the address. And the address I put in was 95 Oak Street West, because that was my mom and dad's house. Notice the red arrow on the right. It shows you requested by, and you need to put your name in, otherwise it doesn't work. The PIN number shows up after you hit search. And it's got a really long number there. The 75134-0066. And then it shows you the address and the property details. The property details are what are on all the documents that my dad had for building the house. Now, if you want to go farther, you have to pay to the Ontario Land Registry Office money. So I didn't go any further. But they do have up at the top map. So I went to the map. And this explains the number. The block number, see this space here, is the beginning of that number, 75134. That's the number of the block that my dad's house is in. And then the numbers at the end, the 0066, that was the exact place where it was his lot. So that's what those numbers mean. Now, the copybooks of Essex and Kent counties, as I said before, the books in Essex County are listed by lot and concession. The books in Kent County are wonderful because they have an alphabetical listing by person's names as well. So I'm showing you what I found in Kent County. Copybook P for Kent County at the University of Windsor, the number 13958 is the instrument number. Remember, that's the one that's in that first column. It's dated October the 1st, 1923. Sarah Jane Skane gives the widow of Zachariah Spence, sold to Isaac Downing for $400. She sold lots 6 and 7 in a certain block and being composed, and it gives you this long thing of where it is. The next one is copybook P, same book, 14073, 13th of January, 1924. Isaac Downing, Ridgetown laborer, and Mary Louise Downing, wife of, well, now you've got the name of the wife, and they sold to George H. Downing, who was a laborer, in consideration of natural love and affection and $1. That is usually, and it is in this case too, selling to a family member, and George is their son. So they're basically, whether he ever paid the dollar or not, I don't know, but that's what they said he would have to pay. And he was given by his parents lots 6 and 7. And you can see Isaac Downing had just left his mark, so he probably did not know how to write. I am busy right now. Please do not call back. Okay. Census records. The census records are another place that you can find where the lot and concession number is of where your people live. Do not look at the nominal roll because that information isn't there. You have to go to the agricultural census of Canada West. And in that rectangle that I have in red, it shows you the lot and the concession number. Notice that lot 79, underneath there's like 4 spots that have no number there. But if you look in the next column, it shows you how much land each person has. So they're all part of lot 79, but one person owns 100, another one owns 25, another one owns 35. So it's not just one farm, it's been divided up. City directories. The city directories, the gazetteers, the phone books, voters lists, etc. Now, these are sometimes done on an annual basis, especially for cities. And that's a great way of sort of tracing the history back on a piece of property as to when they might have sold the property if you haven't gone into the land records. They list persons living at a location, with the name of a spouse and occupation. It can also list a female as a widow. And you might be able to find an ancestor's business. There might be an ad in the book. But remember, these records may list the occupant, not the owner, because some of these people may be renting. Here's an example of a gazetteer. This is 1866 for Essex County. And I wanted to show you a page of what it was like. I've got lots of arrows here. So this is what it looks like. So if we go down to the bottom one, the red one, you've got Mrs. McMullen. She's a widow. Her residence is Dalhousie Street. Notice none of these really have a number with the house in 1866. Everybody just knows where they live on Dalhousie Street, I guess. But she's named as a widow. Up at the top, the green one, is James Moran. He's a mason, and his residence is Apsley Street. Now, I picked him because there is no Apsley Street in Amherstburg anymore. That street is now called Sandwich Street. So he may still be in the same house when it's changed over to Sandwich Street, but you need to check to see if the name of the street has stayed the same. That's one of the little glitches that can happen when you're trying to trace a house. The blue ones show something about a business. McGee and Botsford, it's a grocery store, exchange office, Gore and Dalhousie Streets. And they say see card, so there'd be an advertisement somewhere in the book. Right below it says Samuel McGee. McGee and Botsford, so he works for the same company. Residence, corner, Dalhousie Street and Gore. So he's probably living above the store. So you know where the store is, you'll know where he's living. Here's another business directory with the farmers. This one's got 3 counties in it. It's Essex, Kent, and Lambton, which is 1888. I'm showing you just this one page here from it to show you the abbreviations. F is for a freeholder. That is somebody who owns the property. T is a tenant. That is someone who is renting the property. And the G is the Gore, which instead of having concession 4, it'll say a G for a Gore road. Those are roads that don't follow the grid lines of a regular place in Ontario. Museums, archives, and libraries. Original land documents were placed after Applerod. Essex County is sort of all over the place. Remember I told you that the documents ended up going to different places. So in Essex County, with what I know so far, is the Marsh Collection has Malden Township and Amherstburg. Ayers has Colchester Townships. The Kingsfield-Gosfield Heritage Society has Gosfield. Eckers, which is in Essex, has Tilbury, Rochester, and the town of Essex. If there was no other location for the records, the Ontario Archives took them. Now, the Ontario Archives has Kent County and it has Anderton Township. The reason it has Anderton Township is because Anderton Township was originally an Indian reserve. And all property that was originally given to the First Nations had to go to the Ontario Archives in case there was any kind of legal arguments over the property that the government had to handle. The Global Genealogy website under there that I've given you also on the handout has a page that explains where all of the property went to that we knew of at the time of 2001. Now, there's also the Local Architectural Conservation Advisory Committee, used to be called LACAC. Records could be at them. They're a committee that was set up back in the 70s, I believe, to document the history of historical buildings. LACAC is now referred to as the heritage committees in the towns. Now, if a community does not have a heritage committee, the town councillors themselves are responsible. This is a place where they have done historical documentation on older homes, including pictures. Here's an example. Quite a few years ago, back in the 1980s, early 80s, late 70s, let's put it that way. I had been to the Norfolk Historical Society, which is in Simcoe, the town of Simcoe in Norfolk County, and left my name and my address and said that I was interested in the Butlers who had come from that county. They had called me and they said, we're doing research on a house in Wyndham Township and we found some pictures up in the attic. They've got names on the back. Bonus. The names were my family. I said, oh, I'd love to get copies of them. And I went up to get the copies. Well, they found the pictures because the person who had bought the house, the Brinker family, wanted the house to be designated. And so the LACAC went in, they did a research on the whole house and found out that the original owner was a Butler, which just happens to be my Daniel Harvey Butler. And I was given a copy of 22 pages of what the house was like on the inside. One of the interesting things about the house was that an ivory disc was found in the newel post. And that was a sign that the family had the mortgage paid off. So I know my Daniel Harvey Butler actually paid his mortgage. And these are the pictures that were found in the house. So there's Philip Butler. He is Daniel Butler's father, born in 1788, died in 1866. His wife, Jane Howie, and then two brothers, Robert and Henry. And both of those brothers were bachelors. So how much more information can you get on bachelors? Like, you don't usually find pictures necessarily of them. Archives. The Ontario Archives found this drawing, this architectural drawing of a house. They had no idea where the house was located. And they were sending copies of it off to the different museums. And my husband worked at the Fort Malden National Historic Site here in Amherstburg. And they were sent this picture. And they right away could figure out what house it was. It was the house here in Amherstburg. It was built in 1835. And if you can the picture on the right that has the inside of the house had a double drawing room with those sliding doors, pocket doors that would separate the two rooms, but they were like mirror images of each other. And I think that's what gave away which house it was. It's the house of Sarah Elliott, and she was the wife of Matthew Elliott, who was part of the British Indian Department. This is the house that she built afterwards, and the house still exists. This is a picture of the house. The veranda's gone. It's been modernized a little bit on the outside, but the inside is gorgeous. It's just a beautiful old house. So you never know what you're going to find even in the archives of Ontario. Now, historical maps. The Historical Atlas of Essex and Kent Counties was written in 1881. It's a great big huge black book, and there's one for lots of different counties in Ontario. The book for us, there's just one book for all of Essex and Kent. The Ontario Historical Map Project, and the website there, they have the Walling map of 1877. It was made by, I have a mistake in the spelling. It should be H.F. Walling for Essex County. There are copies of it located at the Park House and at the Amherstburg Town Hall, but it's also on this website. But they call it the Tackaberry map. So why does it have two names? Well, Walling was the person who made the map, and Tackaberry was the person who published the map. So that's why it has two different names, but it's the exact same map. The map is about 8 feet by 6 feet. It's a huge thing, and it's wonderful because it has a lot of names on the different pieces of property. So you can see who the neighbors are next door to your house. The Tremaine maps of 1860 as well. So that's 17 years earlier. And it's the same kind of thing where they have an awful lot of names on all the different pieces of property. Now, a lot of people in Ontario have heard about Colonel Talbot. And Colonel Talbot was given the task of settling a huge area of Ontario between 1811 and 1849. And the Elgin County Library, I don't know, elgincounty.ca, has taken those maps and have put them online. And the ones for Essex County, I helped with doing the transcriptions, which was not easy. And I'll explain that when I show you the maps. Here's a copy of the Historical Atlas of Essex and Kent Counties, 1881. To be in this map, for your name to be put on your piece of property, you had to subscribe, you had to pay. Well, as you can tell by Howard Township, a lot of people didn't pay. But what they added to the map was a directory of the farmers. So you do have another page or pages that tell you what concession and lot number each farmer was on. And it also tells you whether they owned it or if they were renting. Now, the Historical Atlas is really interesting too, because it has pictures of some people that were leaders in the community. And it also has prominent pictures, drawings of your prominent farms. This was very interesting because Susanna Weigel and John Weigel, their picture, even though they're from Gosfield Township, which is in Essex County, they're actually in the Kent County section of the map of the book. So the map, the farm underneath is actually a farm in Dover Township, which is in Kent County. So make sure you look over the whole book and see if you can find anything that's related to your family. The Ontario Historical County Map Project. So if you can tell here, the ones that they have maps for are the ones that are colored. They don't have anything for Elgin or Kent. We do for Essex, a lot around the Hamilton, Toronto area. Not as much for anything at the Lanark, Carleton area yet. I'm sure they're looking for them, and they'll add when they can find things. Okay, this is the Walling map, and if you notice in the bottom right-hand corner, it has HF Walling, and it has published by RM Tackaberry. So those are the two names. So what I'm showing you here is a section. The biggest section is actually down by Point Peely. That broken front road goes down to Point Peely, and Leamington would be up in the top left-hand corner. And they've got all the names of the different people owning the property at that time. And then the smaller picture on the right side is Malden Township. Now the Talbot Settlement and Survey maps, this is what the web page looks like. And if you look at the map, you can see Malden Township doesn't have anything for the Talbot Settlement, but it covers an awful lot of area for the southwestern area of Ontario. This is what the page looks like when you go in. And I picked this page up in the right-hand corner. There's one column, and it's got, those are all the pictures of the map. So you click on those little cameras, and you can see Howard Township, or Howard and Orford, or London Township. The column that's on the far right is the index. As you can tell, not every section of the map has been indexed yet. All of the sections of Essex County are indexed to the best of our ability. Now, the reason it's so hard, there's a copy of one of the original maps. Colonel Talbot is a kind of person who could hold a grudge. So he wrote everybody's names in pencil. And then if he didn't like you for some reason, he would rub out your name and he'd put somebody new on the property. Or it could be that you didn't pay your dues or didn't do the work that you were supposed to have done by a certain date. And then your names would be rubbed off and somebody else would get the property. So that's why it's difficult to read, because sometimes you're getting shadows of what was written underneath. With the Essex County branch in the members only section, there's also maps. See, it's got the Talbot maps and the index. It also has a Colton map of 1855 and the insurance plans for the city of Windsor. Those are great for trying to find a piece of property within the city of Windsor. That's in a members only section. So you have to be a member of Essex County to be able to get into those maps. Newspapers. Newspapers are fun because they tell you different things about the house. Advertising the houses for sale. They would sometimes have descriptions. They would have the price maybe, or the house could have been foreclosed and it's an auction. There's house plans. I remember the Windsor Star on Saturday's paper, they would have advertisements of houses and they would have all the house plans inside and you'd be able to figure out which house plan you liked better. And that's a good way to see what maybe the inside of your house was like if your house was one of those plans. Sears and Roebuck, if you do a Google search for Sears and Roebuck, you can find pictures of the kinds of houses that they were selling plus the house plans. There's notices in some of the papers of who was getting a building permit. What was it for? How much was it? And there's articles and photographs about historic buildings that might be important, that might have something to do with your house. Now, the websites underneath, there's Our Digital World, and there's the Scholars one, SWOTA. SWOTA seems to be just Essex County. I haven't been able to see any of the other sections. So what I'm going to show you tonight is Our Digital World. And this is the first page. And if you look at the red arrow on the right, you've got advanced search, the list of titles, my bookmarks, and the timeline and coverage. So with an advanced search, you can search by a person's name. Timeline, if you know the date, you can go by the date. So you put in the year, up comes the year, and then you type in what newspaper you want. So that green arrow is showing you some of the newspapers that they have listed on this website for Our Digital World. And I wanted everybody in Chatham to realize that the Chatham Daily News is on there. That's the one Chatham paper I recognize. There's the Amherstburg Echo, the Leamington Post is on there. Some of these papers, like the Amherstburg Echo, will have information even for all of Essex County. It's not just an Amherstburg paper. This is another section on Our Digital World, and it shows you where all their newspapers are. They even have one in Cleveland, Ohio. They have one in Kingston. So you don't have to be just researching Essex and Kent counties, but up around Peterborough and Toronto and Kingston, there's other newspapers that are available as well. Just to let you know though, they may not have every single issue of the paper. Some of them were destroyed and they don't have copies. But it's a good way of checking to see if you can find the information that you want on someone. Here's an example of Chatham Daily News, 1934, houses for sale, houses to rent, a mortgage sale, an auction sale. Here's those houses I showed you before. These are the ones from Sears and Roebuck Company, house plans. They show you what the house was like. So for $1,995, they will give you free building plans, but they're going to build the house for you. The building permits. These are out of the Leamington Post. This is my grandfather's house on 33 Chestnut Street. And if you look at the arrow pointing to the left, Fred Butler, Chestnut Street, doesn't tell you the number though, building a frame dwelling in 1922 for $1,500. So he built that house for $1,500. In 1928, on the right-hand side, Fred Butler, Chestnut Street, built a frame veranda for $190. So we now know the original house did not have the porch. I'm busy. Okay, sorry, nobody home to answer the phone. Chestnut Street, he built the veranda after he built the house, so about 6 years later. This is something my dad kept, and I don't know why, but it's perfect for explaining things to you. This is the income tax form for 1946 for my grandfather's house. And if you notice the thin arrow says the address for last year was 27 Chestnut Street. But if you look up at the top where his address is, he's crossed out 27 and he's put in 33. This was the year that Leamington changed the house numbers on Chestnut Street. So that's another thing you've got to watch out for when you're doing research on a house. It might be on the same street, it might be the same house, but the address changed. I know the address for our farmhouse has changed 3 times since we've lived here and we've never moved. Now, this is a picture from the newspaper from 1949. And it's of the Leamington Hospital. It was being built in 1949. And if you look at the area around the hospital, it's just being developed into housing development. And up in the top left-hand corner is my house, my dad's house. And he was building it between 1948 and 1949. So it just happened to accidentally get into the picture with the house of the Leamington Hospital. I've got the house plans for my dad's house. And it's even got the red marks that the town made on it that he had to change when he was building the house. Google Earth Pro is a really cool website, and I can't go into everything that's on it because it's just too much information. But Lisa Louise Cook does an excellent job of showing you different ways of using it. But if you put the address in, it goes to that house. So let's say you live in Ontario, but one of your relatives lived in California, and you wanted to see what their house looked like. You could put in their address and this will take you to it. So here's the 95 Oak Street West is at the bottom, and you can see where the Leamington Hospital is. And that's the aerial view of it, but there's 33 Chestnut in the middle. And there's the street view. There's my grandfather's house. Now on the left-hand side is my great-grandparents' house. So I've got a picture of both of them as to what they look like nowadays. And I can see the differences as to what it was like when I was a kid to what it's like now. So Google Earth Pro is really a good website to go to see pictures of what the houses look like now. Photographs. This is where the personal part of doing the research on a house comes in, is with the photographs. So here's a photograph. Remember that beige house I just showed you that was my great-grandparents'? This is the front porch that I remember. And this is a group of kids, and my aunts are there, my dad's there, but this is what it looked like in the 1940s. We already talked about what the changes were of Bellevue. How do you find the changes on a house? The really neat thing about these pictures, the bottom left one, we didn't realize that the 1875 additions did not include the second floor. Because if you compare it with the one on the right, there are dormer windows above those fancy windows that stick out. And we didn't realize that until we saw the picture. This is the picture of the first house on the farm. It's got the cabin at the back. That was the kitchen. This house was moved 3 times on the farm, but you got to get that kind of information from the family. This house doesn't exist anymore. This house was originally a pensioner's cottage. The left-hand side was the pensioner's cottage. Grandma didn't want to move out of the house, so the rest of the family came and lived with her, and they added on the addition. But if the kids wanted to go visit Grandma, they had to walk outside and go to the front door to visit. They could not use the door in the middle of the house. And this was a really good bonus for me. I found one of those little booklets from the 1950s, you know, where they're all connected together. This is my grandmother and my grandfather and their house at the bottom, and 2 of my aunts and uncles and their first houses at the bottom. What a treat to be able to find their houses at the time that they were living in them. So the records that we've gone through are land records, census records, city directories, museums, archives, and libraries, maps, newspapers, Google Earth Pro, and photographs. There's lots of ways of finding information on your houses. So thank you for inviting me, and I hope I didn't have too many interruptions that you didn't catch what I was saying.
Debra, that was great. You have a lot of really interesting family photos, and you're very lucky to have those ones from the Butlers that that were found for you. I just wanted to mention that the Kent Branch collection in their library, which is closed now, unfortunately, but it will open again, that we have the index to the copybooks, and they're very, very helpful. And also we have a couple copies of the Applerod binders of the people that were participated and which documents went to which location. So again, those are both in the Kent collection. So that's something maybe people, when we open, they can stop in or have us have a look, but they are there. And as you said, they are great resources. We did have one, I think just one so far, question from Stephanie Stone. Hi, Stephanie. Stephanie has been helping proof the Essex newsletter forever. So Stephanie asked you, when you mentioned about Astley Street and that it turned to Sandwich, she wondered, how did you find that out?
My husband. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. My husband has lived in Amherstburg all of his life, and he knows a lot of the history of the area. Basically, you just look at the maps. And if you already know what the town roads are in your location, and you see Apsley Street on a map that's from a different time period, you can tell that those two were definitely the same street. I don't know how you would find out when the names were changed. I would think Sandwich Street, Apsley Street became Sandwich when they took it from Park Street and took it around to reconnect it to Highway 18, which is now County Road 20. Do you understand what I'm saying? Highway 18 used to be Sandwich Street, then it would go down Richmond Street, and then it would go Dalhousie Street out of town, because Park Street was the road that ended Amherstburg.
Right.
That's as far as Apsley Street went. But when Apsley Street actually ended up going around, that would be where the newer Tim Hortons is, the police department, where that is. That road wasn't originally there. So when they rearranged Highway 18 in our area, that's where they probably made it into Sandwich Street, which would be the 1960s.
Right. So you're saying the local, basically the local folks would know more information. So a local library or, town hall or something like that, they might have the plans. Things change.
It's sort of like County Road 18, I think it's 18, is also known as the Pike Road. It's also known as Simcoe Street.
Yeah.
That one road's got about 4 different names. It's also called the gravel road in the old days.
Okay, there's a few other, lot of comments about very informative, a lot of information, wonderful presentation, lots of things to explore. Deborah, where did you get the income tax form that showed the address change? Is this something that was in a private collection or resource?
My dad knew I was interested in family history, and he just gave me a whole bunch of papers. And because of COVID-19, I have been blessed with the time to actually go through all of those papers and add them to a talk like this.
Great.
So
yes.
It was just by accident that I had it.
Okay. Edward says city directories often indicate a city name in the formal old one, which tracing back through the years, and you might find that around the date you're looking for. So that's a good tip,
Yeah,
Edward.
that's a good one.
Elizabeth Beckman. Have an ancestor's pencil drawing from 1840, 1855. Parents were Kent County settlers. It's of their childhood home. Appears well built. On back says my old, capital H, Talbot Street on front. If pioneer families were not builders, anyone know if there was a log cabin kit that guided settlers back in the day? Also, is it well defined when Talbot Trail became Talbot Road to Talbot Street? There's a couple questions in there, I think.
Yeah.
Directions for early pioneers,
Well, the idea of a cabin being built, a log cabin, I think they just did it on their own.
Okay.
I don't think there were any plans or any kind of kits that they could buy. They had to go out and just cut down the trees and do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're building a cabin like that in those old days, you would have had your neighbors helping you too.
Right. And then she wondered about Talbot Trail when it became Talbot Road to Talbot Street, if you have any indication of time frame.
I don't know. I don't have a time frame. He was in charge of it for up till 1849. And when they actually named it the Talbot Road, I don't know.
Okay, that might be a Google search.
Yeah.
Okay, Penelope says, thank you so much for a very interesting presentation. How to expand the information that we might already have. That's great. I really appreciate you being able to Zoom your webinar. Thanks. My husband and relatives are in many places, Windsor, Essex, Tilbury, and Chatham. Oh, that's great. So she's just appreciating that we did this Zoom presentation for her. Thanks, Deborah. I know that the houses on Lincoln Road in Windsor were changed in the 1940s. Would perhaps the archives at the University of Windsor be able to confirm that?
I would check with the city archives themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Windsor archives probably would have information on when streets were changed or renumbered.
Right.
Because they would have to change names when they added Ford City and Walkerville. Some of those streets would have been renamed.
Right. And I recall with the Essex branch that we did a tour of the archives that at the time were in the main public library's basement. And there were many, many maps and a lot of things like that that he was pointing out to us as resources. So you're right, that might be a good stop or a good place to contact.
And would that now be over at the, on Olette Street at the other end?
You know what,
The Martin building.
Yeah, I think that because that main library now, as many people may or may not know, has been closed and the material dispersed. So yeah. Ruth Nicholson. Hi, Ruth. Very interesting. Really enjoyed your presentation, Deborah. Thank you. Love seeing Leamington Connections as my maternal side's location. Great to be able to view it from Waterdown and not have to be in Essex County. And then Linda Urquhart, who is our branch researcher right now, she says, I believe the name changes can be found at the Windsor Public Library, which would be the branch where everything was moved now. If you were to ask the Tom Vedic, who's the genealogist librarian or librarian genealogist, I'm not sure exactly his title, but yeah, if you want to reach out to the library, they likely, Tom can help you there. Thanks, Linda. And I think that was everything. Just scrolling back up for a minute. Lots of wonderful presentations. Yeah, it was really, really good presentation, Deborah.
I'm sorry for all the interruptions. Robert was out for the night and there was nobody here to answer the phone.
Yeah, that's okay. And we have a lot of people, like we have Elizabeth from Los Angeles and Bell River and Stephanie from Kingston and Brandon, Manitoba, Toronto, Grand Band. Mark McKinley's here from Comber. Hi, Mark.
Yay.
Yeah, Bell River. Yeah, Belleville, sorry. Okay. Well, we truly appreciate this presentation, Deborah, and we really appreciate you providing it for both the Kent and Essex branches. So that's a really nice cooperative, us working all together. So I know that you are members of both branches, but more importantly, you have ancestors in both Kent and Essex County, like many of us do. So that was a wonderful presentation. And for those of you, your handout, Deborah, you put in some of the websites and things that you talked about. Is that right?
I put in all the websites that I could remember. I hope I didn't forget any. Okay,
that's great. And if anybody did want to rewatch it, it'll take us a few days, but we will upload it to both the Kent and the Essex YouTube channel. So if you did miss something and you wanted to rewatch it again, it will be available there shortly. Just stay tuned on both of our branch Facebook groups. We usually let people know when they're up and ready. So once again, we won't keep everybody their Friday evening. And thank you so much. And thanks everybody from joining all over the place. We appreciate it. And stay tuned and join us for both of the branches October presentation. And make sure if you are an Ontario Ancestor member, be sure to attend the annual meeting. Your vote is very important this year. So good night to everybody and have a good weekend. Thank you.